some types of information that we can get freely about any, when you set up, for instance, your target and you want to get some information, to gather information about that organization. We said that we can use what is known as open source intelligence, okay, which is you gather the information from freely available sources, okay. And we looked at how we can use, for instance, a Wayback Machine to get the history of the website of your target organization, for instance, how we can use Google hacking, okay, using those special operator key that will help you to refine your search and to get exactly what you are searching for. We looked at the Google hacking database, okay, and we said also one of the sources that it is worth to look at and where you can get let's say information about your target organizations is to query the registrar, where you do have, let's say, any company or any organization that does have a domain that is registering its domain on the internet should, let's say, provide some information to the organization that is responsible for managing the domain, okay. So you can use, let's say, as we mentioned also that the way the hierarchy of that, let's say, the internet is structured, you do have ICANN, which is let's say the top organization that is responsible for the domain, and you do have IANA that is responsible for assigning IP addresses to organization, and you go down until you get to the end user, okay. And within, let's say, each part of, let's say, the word, there is, let's say, specific registrar or organization that is responsible for, let's say, internet registry, which is based on that region, okay. And they have been divided into 5 regions. It depends on what place of the globe you are sitting, so you will be assigned or you will be managed by that specific organization, okay. And you can access, okay, those, let's say, the information with regard to an organization's domain, okay. You can do it manually, or you can use automatic registrar query using those websites that provide such information, okay. You can also, by using manual, for instance, query, we use the whois command, okay, that will query the database that in order to get the registration information, okay. And usually it is, let's say, asking, when we use whois, you will get some information with regard to the internet DNS, okay. When you specify DNS, you will get the domain, you get the address, who owns that domain, for instance, some information. You can use location, you can get phone number, you can get details about the person who is responsible for managing the domain within that target organization, okay. So it is, let's say, a good place where you can get information with regard to some specific target. Another tool that can be used now, yes.
Why couldn't we find information about psu.edu.sa?
Now,
why we couldn't find information about the PSU website?
We'll use it later. We'll do practice and we try to get information.
Okay.
Okay. You can use also NSLOOKUP. Okay, this is a command line that you can set and get the DNS. Okay. By the way, Shabat, what is a DNS?
Server that maintains IP with the address.
Yes, the domain name with the corresponding IP address. Okay.
Yes.
And within the DNS, okay, how many DNS we do have? Can we have a specific number or it is open?
It's open.
Yes, Shabab?
It's open.
It's open. It depends on the organization. It depends of, let's say, the organization let's say, network. Okay, sometimes you do find, for instance, an organization is relying to another organization to provide it with, let's say, the DNS information. That means for any query, for any, let's say, when you type your URL, okay, your computer will go through the network, will go to the nearest DNS, or to, let's say, to the gateway, and the gateway will connect you to your request, will connect your request to the DNS, okay, and the DNS will respond with the corresponding IP address in order for, let's say, for your computer to translate that URL into IP address, and so it will be sent to through the internet. Okay, and when we talk about this, is, for instance, if you can see, this is an example of querying using NSLOOKUP command. Okay, and here we are looking, we need to, or we want to try to get information about cisco.com domain. Okay, and what type of server we are looking at, because within NSLOOKUP you can get many servers. What we are looking here, for instance, we typed MX, which is the mail exchanger, the server that is responsible for emails. Okay, and automatically when you put, for instance, you type in the domain, you will get automatically the server address and, let's say, the server and the address of the IP and the port number. And among the information you got, okay, you got what is known as non-authoritative and authoritative. That means you can have, for instance, some server that are responsible for providing such service, which are, let's say, consider them like a master server. These are authoritative. Okay, they do have authority over that network. And you have non-authoritative, which are, let's say, the client. Okay, which are, let's say, master and the slave, which comes in, let's say, the second level or second place. Okay, it is a very good, let's say, command, and let's say a good command to use to get information about the DNS server. Because if you get to the DNS server, what we can get, if we can have a hand on the DNS server of a company, what type of information we can get, Shabab?
Type of network they are using?
Now, yes, the computer they are using, the IP address, because the DNS itself has what? It does have the domain name or the names and the corresponding IP address. And this is what we are looking for when you gather information, when you do footprinting. Among the information that you consider as a gold information that you want to get is to know what are the different IP addresses, what are the machines, computers that are running within that organization. If you can get hand on that DNS, that means you can get to that specific information. Okay, so it is very important. It is one step, let's say, where to look, or one place where to look for such information in order just to prepare for your attack, for instance. Also, when we talk about, let's say, as we mentioned, when we query the database, when we query the registrar, we need to know the network range. Okay, the network range, that means what type of IP addresses or what type of network ID that specific target is using, for instance. Okay, this is what we mean by the network range. Are they use that target? Is it using, for instance, that organization is using, for instance, class A network or class B or class C or whatever? Let's say the network range. Now, as we mentioned last time, okay, by knowing the network range, you try to minimize, and to restrict the area of your research. Instead of searching within class A, B, and C for live computers, okay, you just restrict yourself to, by knowing that this organization is using 192.168.1.0 network, that means I will just scan those 255 devices, for instance, instead of searching through all, let's say, possible IP addresses that might exist within that organization. So it is very important when we talk about networking or we do footprinting, is to look at the network range. Another tool that can be used is the traceroute. Does anyone has used traceroute or traceroute in Windows? Anyone, Shabab?
I think it's new for us.
It is not new. I don't think it is new.
No, for us,
I
I
think
mean,
we studied in network.
Yeah, we took it in networking.
Yes. So do you remember what is it? What is ping? Let's consider. Let's go with ping. What is ping?
When you get a response from you,
The time it
device
takes
has
for a response from a certain place.
The ping. This is not the answer for the ping, Shabab.
To know when it went.
The thing
the path it
is,
took.
Naam.
no, you're trying. It's like asking, talking to the other side. It's a device.
A ping
It's
is
like-
a way you send those ICMP packets, okay, to verify whether the other end will respond to you or not, whether you can communicate with the other end or not. Okay. However, when we use, for instance, let's say now, let me.
Doctor, trace route is how many nodes do you have between your PC and the target?
Yes. Okay. When you do ping, okay, when you do ping, you just get a reply. For instance, if there is a communication, there is a link between you and the other end, you get a response. You get a reply, but you don't know how many machines or how many intermediate devices separate your machine from the destination, the one that you have pinged, or the one you get, or you got a reply. However, when we use a tracert in Windows or traceroute in Unix or Linux, okay, it gives you exactly how many intermediate devices that does exist between your machine and the destination. And it gives you also the time taken to reach each machine. For instance, if what separates me, for instance, from the destination are two PCs or two devices, you will get, let's say, the information about those two devices. So you will exactly know how many devices exist between you and the machine you used traceroute. Okay, Shabab? We're going to do a practice of it later, inshallah. Okay, Shabab, for the traceroute.
Okay.
This is an example, okay? For instance, tracert www.cisco.com. Okay, if you can see here, you do have, for instance, I do have, let's say, let's say that this is the whole what we got. All those are, I do have this machine as an intermediate. I do have this one as an intermediate, then this one, and so on. So it shows you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11. It shows you all those intermediate devices between my machine and the machine that holds www.cisco.com, which is, let's say, this is the IP address. So this is how the response, or let's say the traceroute result will look like. Okay, whether you are using that within Windows or within Linux machine, the same way. Okay, it gives you the intermediate devices and the times it took to reach. It's like you are sending probe packet, you get reply, then second packet and get reply, and so on. Another way or another place which is worth of information, and it is important to get information, let's say, where you can extract information about the employee. Okay, you can, let's say, go online. Okay, you can track employees of that XYZ organization or your target in order just to get information about them. For instance, you can uncover online, you can get photographs of people, of employees, video, any information, places they have visited, for instance, where they have their, let's say, activities, whether political or any other types of activities they do have. If they have been working for a previous company, for instance, what are their co-workers, okay? Whether they are, for instance, posting some comment. Here we talk about discriminatory comment or fabricated qualifications. All this type of information, you can get it online when you search for some specific people, okay? This is one of, let's say, place that, don't forget that we are at the phase of gathering information. That means any type of information can be vital for us for the next phase of attack. Okay, and those people we are targeting, we need to target those key employees. Okay, key employee who are considered as, for instance, they do have some specific privilege within that organization. Because if you can get, for instance, their username and password, at least you can have, let's say, a good, let's say, access and world access within that organization. So going online and searching for some specific people, you can get, let's say, a lot of information. You can go, for instance, whether those people are, you can also, okay, go to the website itself, to that XYZ organization, and you try to, for instance, to extract the names of people working for that organization. You can get their emails. Okay, you can find, for instance, some organization, they will post phone numbers of their employees, their photographs, whether the employees are, for instance, those employees are participating in blogs, okay, whether they are active in social media using YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, any social media way, okay, and you can, for instance, from those sources, you can gather, you can extract information. Okay, this is an example of a website, I think in USA, which is known as Zaba Search, where you just type in the name of the guy you are looking for, the state he is living where, and you can get information. Or you can type, for instance, his phone number, or type any phone number, you can get the corresponding, let's say, person who owns that phone number, and so on. So as we mentioned, you can find many information, okay, where you can get vital, let's say, information where about employees of some specific target. Yes, I just heard. Any question?
Yes, doctor. Can you just make it as a slideshow? We can see. Yes, thank you.
Okay, Shabab. Also, what you can do to, for instance, to search for some specific information, okay, you can exploit those insecure applications that are running within an organization. Okay, for instance, you can find, you discover that organization is using weak applications that are sending, let's say, data in plain text, okay, like telnet or FTP or HTTP, POP, SNMP, are commands. Those are the commands that are entered at that command line interface. Okay, those types of command, okay, you can get and you can exploit them as an attacker. You can exploit them and get beneficial. Like, for instance, like what we mentioned, NSLOOKUP. NSLOOKUP is considered as an R command because it is a command line command where you can apply it and get information. You type who is, for instance, who is, then you follow it by the domain name. You can get plenty information about that domain you are looking for. These are, let's say, command line command that can be used by a hacker, okay, and get benefit of them in order just to try to exploit such, let's say, weaknesses within those applications used in some specific organization or specifically for your target organization. We have already mentioned social network or social media. Okay, for instance, you can send a malicious URL if you discover that, let's say, an employee who has, let's say, a Facebook page. Okay, and you send him, for instance, a link, and that link is a malicious link. Okay, in order just to install, let's say, a malware on his PC. Okay, and you just wait. When that guy, for instance, logs into his company's website, for instance, to his account, he will enter probably his username and password, and you can get that username and password. So this is one way of, let's say, using social network to gather information. So it is very important to educate, for instance, employees about the usage of the social network and you ask them, for instance, not to use any type of, let's say, information related to their work within their, let's say, social network activity.
Doctor,
Yes?
do I have to specify in the contract that I can hack the employees of the organization? Because I think there is a punishment for hacking people in social media here in Saudi Arabia.
No, not hacking, not hacking. Here we are not saying hacking. Okay, for instance, as a pen tester, okay, if you are allowed to, for instance, to use the social media, to use, let's say, social engineering attack. Okay, using social engineering attack, that means from perspective of when we talk, inshallah, when we cover a chapter about social engineering, you can do it in many ways. One of the ways that you can do social engineering is by without interfering with the company itself. Okay, there is nothing, let's say, that will oblige you, for instance, to interact with within the company itself. From the outside, you just search on the net about employees, try to get friendly with them, for instance, using social engineering, try to get their profile from, let's say from organization, or sorry, from social media websites like Facebook. And what you will reply in your report, that, for instance, XYZ company's employees have plenty of information, okay, publicly available on the internet. And from that information, this is what I got. I managed to get the username and password. So you show them that this is a weakness. This is one of the weaknesses that can be exploited. This is one of the vulnerability that can be exploited by a hacker to get access to your company through, let's say, your employee. Of course, when we talk about within the contract, when you do pen testing, okay, and usually, let's say, as we mentioned, it depends of the type of, let's say, information you have been given. If you are doing white box testing, it's not like you are doing black box testing. Okay, in the white you do have all the information. You have those username and password. Okay, you don't have to do social engineering. But however, if you are doing a black box testing, you don't know anything. So you need to show them that you managed to get the information, and you specify them how you managed to get that information. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And also, Shabab, for when we do pen testing, does anyone know what is the red team? There's the red team and blue team in pen testing, let's say, domain. Anyone?
Yeah, the red team is the one trying to penetrate, and the blue team trying to find out about the attack.
Yes. And usually when you do, sometimes it depends of the circumstance. It depends of the agreement between you and the manager. Sometimes if you are hired as a red team, okay, not necessarily those blue team or the people who are working to defend that organization's network are aware about your work. Sometimes they don't know anything. They are not told that there is someone who has been hired to do pen testing to our network. Okay, and sometimes they are aware. Okay, let's say you try to do your best, they try to do their best, and at the end you will get your report and to see whether you managed to hack, let's say, the network, or to get your feet inside the network. Okay, some basic countermeasures that can be done, okay, in order, for instance, to protect yourself against a footprinting and reconnaissance phase. Okay, as we mentioned, this phase is totally based on gathering information. Okay, as an organization, how can you limit, let's say, the availability of the information that can be on the hand of the attacker? Okay, first thing is restrict the employees to access social network sites from organization's network. You cannot, let's say, forbid them from accessing social media, social network from the outside, but at least you need to restrict them to or to prevent them at all to use any type of social media network within the organization's network. Okay, because if someone accesses his profile, his, let's say, Facebook, and as I mentioned, he clicked on some malicious link, and the malware will spread over the organization network, not from his home network. Okay, so it is very important to restrict or prevent anyone from accessing those social network inside. Configure web servers to avoid information leakage. Whatever, let's say, the steps you take within the web server, because the web server contains the web pages of your organization, so you need to try to secure that server in order just to restrict the access to the information and not to leak any type of not public information. Educate employees to use pseudonym on blogs, groups, and forums, not to use their own name. Okay, they need to use initial or anything else, because if they use their own correct name, someone who is looking for employees of XYZ company, they can get exactly, let's say, to which blogs or groups or forums those employees are participating. However, if they are using some pseudonyms, okay, it is very difficult to guess, let's say, whether those, or to know whether those employees are participating in such groups or not. Do not reveal critical information in press release, annual report, product catalogs, etc. Okay, sometimes you need, as for instance, some companies, they need to do some press release every 6 months, for instance, about their, maybe it is a financial organization. They need to give some, let's say, update about their activities and, for instance, information about, let's say, the activity of the organization. Okay, so during that press release, you should not reveal, should give just brief information without going into details. Okay, sometimes you are requested by law, for instance, to publish an annual report about your activity, your turnover, your gain, and so on. So you don't need to specify everything, okay, in details, specifying who are your employees, their details, information. So you just limit yourself to what you are required only. Don't give extra information. Okay, limit the amount of information that you are publishing on the website internet. Whenever you do have a website, okay, you should restrict and limit the information available, as we have mentioned previously. Use footprinting techniques to discover if you do have within your organization that sensitive information. Okay, you will use the same techniques that is used by a hacker to gather information. Use it on your own site, on your web page, to see what type of information is available publicly. Because sometimes, believe me, sometimes you will be astonished on how much information you have and you provided free, okay, to the public, to the hackers. Okay, while using the same techniques, you will know the type of information, the amount of information freely available, so you can restrict, let's say, that type of information within the website. Prevent search engines from caching the web pages and use anonymous registration services. Sometimes when you register within those registrars, you don't have to provide, let's say, the exact information. Okay, for instance, when you provide, for instance, the contact name, contact number of the guy who is responsible for managing your domain. Not necessarily you have to provide the correct number, phone number, or correct name. So you are requested to provide name, but not, let's say, you are not requested to provide the correct name. So it is up to you. Okay, if you have, let's say, you are free to provide any type of information, you can provide fake information. Okay, in order just to, let's say, prevent any leak or any information to be publicly available to any hacker or any attacker. Ensure or enforce security policy within, let's say your organization, in order just to prevent and let's say restrict people from revealing the information to another party, okay, to another organization or anyone who is contacting that organization by phone or by email. So you just enforce security policy not to divulge the information given to an outsider. Set internal and external DNS. Okay, if you do have, for instance, let's say you have DNS, okay, you can have within your network, you can have an internal network and external network, which is DMZ. Does anyone know what is DMZ? Demilitarized zone?
Yeah, it's to have your network connected to the internet safely.
Yes, that means you do have part of your network that can be separated from your main local area network, where you do have your real network, okay? And that part that will have DNS server, that will have, for instance, a web server that is accessible from the public, from the internet. So what you can do, you can have two DNS, one located inside your network and another located in outside network or in the DMZ zone. So if that one is compromised, that means at least you have the other one that is, let's say, safe. Okay. Disable directory listing in the web servers. The same thing if you do have a web server running with your organization, you don't allow anyone to look at, let's say, the information within that web server. Okay, the structure of your files or directory that holds, let's say, the information about people and so on. Educate employees about different social engineering checks and risks. So it is very important to educate your employees about how they can be hacked, okay, using the social media, how they can be tricked, okay, by anyone, okay. Opt for privacy service on who is lookup database, as I mentioned. Okay, for instance, if you are requested to give information about your domain, okay, and if you have, let's say, a choice of not giving, between whether to publish private information or not, choose not to publish your information. Like, for instance, when you have a landline, okay, when you have a landline number, okay, you have the choice whether to put that number with your name in the directory or not. So if you have a choice for when you register your domain not to give your private information, you choose that option. Okay. Avoid domain level cross-linking for critical assets. Okay, going from one domain to another one, from one place to another one. We try to limit, let's say, the communication between the different types of or different part of my network that holds, let's say, those critical assets, where you do have, let's say, your main server, your main DNS server, and so on. Of course, encrypt and password protect sensitive information. Okay, whenever we do have, let's say, sensitive information, you need to encrypt that information in order, in case if it gets in the hand of an attacker, at least he cannot, let's say, decrypt it and see the data itself. Okay, we conclude our chapter. If you have any question with regard to this chapter, Shabab, it is a footprinting.